Ladies and gents, welcome to episode 6, I believe, of VRB. I am Kev, and I am joined again by my good friend Tim.
Good evening. How's you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I have had a cold that has been going on for about a month now. Like most of the icky symptoms went away, but then the coughing just kept going and going and going. So I do apologise to anyone if that hits today. Just expect, for those on the video, just expect phlegm to fly towards the camera in glamorous ways. It's I'll try my best to prevent it, but it is a shotgun. Yes.
I had a good cold for a good month or so. I was ill for 100% of my holiday over Christmas. And yeah, as I think we've alluded to in the past, like colds and VR is not a good mix.
So I've not put my headset on in probably 3 weeks as a result of this.
Yeah, I've only just started playing in the last week or so, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, it's as you say, not a good mix. Yeah, and just to explain what's going on behind me, prior to starting the podcast, I decided to show these guys my old man bought me a thing that had been on my Amazon wishlist for quite a long time, which is a green screen that straps to the back of your chair, because I thought that'd be a pretty cool idea just for someone to buy me one day. I did not realise it would be the size of whatever this is. And also, I don't know how to get it back down. So Tim and producer Coleman were having a good laugh watching me try to recircularise that into a nice small shape that fits nicely into this little bag here, but no luck. So all I got to say is when I start work tomorrow from this very room, the people on my morning stand-ups are going to have a good laugh going, what's going on there then?
And Coleman's going to have fun with that video footage as well.
Indeed, yeah. I'm not sure how good it's going to be, like lighting-wise, but you know, we'll see what happens.
I'm sure he'll make it work, or work against you, as the case may be. But yeah,
bloody green screens. Anyway, this is a VR podcast. We have been away for a couple of months now, a few months, and a lot has happened in that time. I really got reinvested in VR since the last time we were playing around. I was kind of tippy-tapping around the VR landscape last time we recorded. I properly got like involved over the last, I want to say November through December. When did Assassin's Creed come out? November, early November?
We literally podcasted the week before. I think the last one we did was the week before that came out, wasn't it? So we were talking in the build-up to that.
I bought and played that, and then I just got in hard on VR. Nice. So I've played like 7 games. I'm not going to discuss them all this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a good time, barring the stoppage from colds. Anyway, we got some news to discuss. So let's start off with the most important bit of news, of course, which is that UEVR, which is a PC-based I don't know what to call it, mod, that is released in beta. And this allows for VR compatibility with almost any Unreal Engine game on PC. It's made by someone called Dog, who I think is responsible for some other famous mod that I'm misremembering at the moment.
He's done
it's very
other
similar
mods
to
for individual games, I believe, but
Gotcha.
This is the first time he's done one for an engine as a whole, as far as I'm aware, at least anyway.
Okay, cool. And Coleman did warn me up front that there's some funny footage in amongst all of this stuff for video viewers. This is similar to, so there was a thing that I paid for many years ago when I had the Oculus Dev Kit 2. And I can't remember for the life of me what it was called, but it was a very similar thing that allowed to basically turned any game into not a great VR experience. This seems to go a few steps further, where you actually get full 6 degrees of freedom. You can like control your weapons and whatnot with your hand, which is cool. It seems great. Certainly great in premise. It's free and it lets you play any game you want that's in Unreal in VR. I think Unreal 4 Plus. I don't know if there's compatibility all the way back to Unreal Engine 3.
I think from what I've heard, it gives you like good options as well, so that you can modify things to make the best of what you can do. I don't know how easy or easily available it is for developers of their own games to actually utilize in putting out a VR patch for their own games. I don't know if that's something that if it's a back and forth thing or not. But I hope that's the case, because that will, make it an even more useful tool for developers and make it so that it's even easier for them to put their games out with a VR mode as well, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, or if not that, then at least give them an idea of where to get cracking. Not every game needs to be in VR, of course. I just saw Liza P on the video stream there. That is not a game that you need to be playing in VR.
I could see that working, actually, funny enough. I could see that looking quite interesting. I think too often, like, a few developers have been afraid of making, a traditional, like, get from a viewpoint that you wouldn't necessarily expect to work in VR. Like, I think third person can actually work reasonably well.
Oh, it does, yeah. Insomniac made a fantastic game called, I want to say, Edge of Nowhere. It was their first VR game that they ever made, which was a third-person Call of Cthulhu universe game, which was really good. Yeah, so I'm not saying that third person doesn't work. I'm just saying that there are going to be games that you don't need VR for, as we all know.
We're showing footage here of one that I'm really jealous of, because it's a game that I'm playing through at the moment, and that's one that I think could work really well in VR. As I said at the time I was talking about it last week, but that's RoboCop, and that apparently works reasonably well apart from the cutscenes in VR, and. This is another one that I'm jealous of the fact that, I'm guessing PC gamers, but I'm guessing you can access this through the Quest as well, no? Like through linking up with it?
You'd have to plug your Quest through your PC or AirPlay it. Yeah, like it all has to run off your PC. You can't run this mod off of a Quest natively. But one of the things that I've invested in... Since I laugh because you'll see why I laugh in a minute. One of the things I invested in since the last episode was virtual desktop,
right?
On Quest, which is costs about I think £8 or £9, and it allows you to stream your entire PC to your headset really effectively wirelessly anywhere in the house. It's really good.
That's cool.
And play all of your games from there, and operate your PC if you want. About 3 weeks after I bought that. Steam, of course, released the Steam Link for Quest so that you can do all of your Steam games for free, which I've actually not had a good experience with. I can never get the audio to come through. I don't think I'm the only person with that issue. I think I've missed some configuration somewhere, but Virtual Desktop works brilliantly anyway. So I actually replayed a lot of Half-Life Alyx a couple of months back, just because I could do it wirelessly up in my bedroom on the next floor while my PC's down here,
nice.
Which has been good. So UEVR, it seems cool. I would like to see more game. Like, there's a compatibility list available. I would like to see more compatible games, obviously, but there's already quite a lot that are perfectly compatible. So it's got a really good start. As Tim alluded to, there's a little bit of an oddity with the way they handle cutscenes, which is that it kind of pulls you out of the game into kind of like a cinema where you can watch it on a big screen kind of situation. It's not a perfect solution, but you're never going to get a perfect solution when you're trying to port a game never designed for VR into a VR experience. So, you get what you
One thing, though, I think Sony needs to rock up at Prey Dog's house with a big sack of cash and just ask them to very kindly develop a similar thing for PlayStation.
It would certainly give them a lot more games, right?
Exactly.
on that platform. Anyway, other things that have happened since we last recorded is this past week, Bulletstorm VR came out.
Mm-hmm.
You'll recall Tim and I were quite positive about this when it got announced, and we were discussing it 1 or 2 episodes ago. I decided not to risk it and wait for reviews, and I am thankful that I did, because the reviews, I'm assuming that the NDA was up on, the day of?
I think by the sounds of things, they didn't send out any or many review codes. Most of the people that I know that reviewed it after purchasing themselves. Even like Ian Higdon from Eurogamer purchased his own copy.
Right.
So if there were keys distributed, they weren't distributed ahead of time and they weren't widely distributed. Which is
understandable why, given the absolute, shall we say, dirt show that was coming in.
Yes.
It sounds like I mean I've not played it. Obviously, the native Quest version is an absolute atrocity, as I understand it.
As is the PSVR2 version, apparently, as well.
And the PSVR2 version is okay.
Yep.
I was under the impression that might be the best one. But
well, that doesn't mean that it's
Steam
good.
isn't
by
good
the
either.
looks of things, apparently it's buggy. It's a buggy mess. Some things just look terrible. A lot of the environments don't look good. I mean, things like the enemy AI being dumb was always a bit of the case in that game. It was always a case of the challenge really wasn't in how hard the enemies were. It was in getting a high score by killing them creatively.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I don't mind. And some of the things it's being criticized for, I think, is a factor of, when the game was built, and not redesigning it entirely from the ground up does mean that, it's going to be a bit different. They also added some content. There's another character that's got some double blades and stuff like that, but I haven't heard anyone particularly say anything particularly glowing about that as an addition. Doesn't sound like the longest game. And like you said, I've got to the point where, particularly for VR games, I just will entirely wait for reviews, and if they don't come out before launch, I don't trust them at all, basically.
That's fair. I think that VR, more than any other platform, has proven over the last several years that people have high ambitions and often execute way below what we would need as a standard as gamers. It's fair. I mean, we've discussed before how my bar is quite high for what I consider a good VR game or not. This falls way short of anything I would expect. So, yeah, it's unfortunate because we both like this game.
Yeah, we both like the game, but then also I was looking forward to seeing someone convert a game of this era and if it was a good job and then it was successful, then that would encourage more people to do the same, and I thought that would be good.
It's been done though, right? I mean, you want to go even further back into another era. Resident Evil 4 had a really good VR port.
Yeah.
Like the original Resident Evil 4.
But that was a totally remade game, and they possibly, having had a better experience of VR...
I don't even mean the new remake.
Oh, right, okay. Just the existing old game.
Yeah, in VR. That came out a while back, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one. I will say that... No, I'll leave that for later. So, last bit of news... this came in hot today, I believe, on the press, is that the devs of Demeo, or Demeo, I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Demeo, I've always heard, but I don't know.
Demeo. Okay, the game where you kind of play a board game. Now, this wasn't an originally VR game, was it? It was originally released on PlayStation, I think, and maybe Xbox, as a, quote, flat screen, as Tim would put, or as I would call it, a normal video game where you don't strap a box to your face. And they obviously ported it to VR, and that was really, really well received. One of the few really popular games that I've not actually tried myself, actually.
It's also coming or is already in mixed reality as well, I believe.
That rings bells.
Not sure if it's coming with Apple's... Oh, yeah, and instantly I have to mention this as we're on the VR podcast, but yeah, it came up in discussion the other day with Apple wanting to force the word spatial on the word.
Yeah.
That means that the Apple Vision headset can also be known as the Apple Spatial System, or ASS.
Or ASS, yeah.
The ass on your face.
Yeah, so just to clarify what Tim means there is that Apple basically went to every dev and said, do not mention VR or AR when referring to that. We've got a very specific series
MR,
of words that we like you
XR,
to use. Yeah, none of that. None of the things that already exist and everyone knows what they mean. We've got these new terms for you to learn just for us, which is a good lord, that's a very Apple maneuver.
Yes.
Anyway, going back to Demeo, those devs are making an official Dungeons and Dragons game, presumably in the same style. So that would be awesome because I do like a Dungeons and Dragons board game.
That's a perfect fit as well, basically. Like that
absolutely
makes sense.
Perfect fit. Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're going to make more of a board game or more of a kind of open adventure game type thing. I wonder if I'm guessing they're going to stick to kind of a bit of the Demeo formula, but with a Dungeons and Dragons skin on top of it, which kind of makes sense.
I think that makes the most sense if they want to make a lot of money without any effort.
Yep. I mean, there are good Dungeons and Dragons board games as well. Lords of Waterdeep is a very good worker placement game, and yeah, there are other board game things that they could possibly borrow from. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see exactly what they do with it. But perfect fit with a dev and a property for them to work with, basically.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any better fit than that.
Gloomhaven, maybe, but
I just mean in terms of a developer.
Yeah.
Like in terms of proven track record, can't think of that one.
Yeah.
Yes, so upcoming games. Let's move on to this section. So on the 11th of January, and hopefully Coleman's got some trailers queued up for the video, we have got Heartshot Chapter 1 releasing. This is on Steam VR Early Access.
Now, even though this came out a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to give you some homework here, Kev, as this is Steam VR Early Access. If you can have a look at this possibly. I know that, you won't always have what's name, although you said you got the streaming capabilities of doing it now, that might make it more likely that you can have a look at a Steam Early Access game. But this one intrigued me. I really like the look of it. So I wanted to know if it's any good, because I hadn't really heard much about it.
I mean, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. This is, as per usual, I've not done my homework before starting this podcast, so I am seeing these trailers for the first time. But yeah, this looks promising off the bat.
Yeah.
Looks like some sort of shooter with telekinetic powers, I want to say.
Yeah. Yep. I think I saw in a blurb that it's something to do with magnetic powers. So that's why all the objects you can see are flying towards you are metallic, I think, basically. But that kind of gives it a bit more of a real world grounding, and I think that just seemed like an interesting mix. A bit of a military shooter, but with a few extra tricks in it up its sleeve. I think that could be interesting, basically.
That looks fun. I'm just going to have a look at what that costs in terms of money. Good lord, that's loud. And it is not got a price. Okay, so no. We'll figure that out when the time comes.
And yeah, full game's out sometime later this year, presumably just on Steam VR for the moment. But yeah, I'd like to see that coming to other platforms as well, hopefully. But yeah, looks interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a 1.0 release, there's no reason why they shouldn't hold that to a specific platform. But when you're in early access, Steam's a really easy option, obviously.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Another game on the roadmap for this month is Retropolis.
Well, actually,
2,
it's in the rearview mirror, this one as well. I was intrigued by the look of it and thought you might be too.
And this is coming to PC VR and Quest with early access that was last June, and the full game is out now. Gotcha, okay. So this is an Art Deco game, very black and white at the moment. Shades of, I want to say, Steam World in there.
Yeah, and kind of old Metropolis film, and that kind of almost steampunk-esque robotic noir kind of detective noir kind of story. But yeah, I like the look of it. And then it goes from black and white to color in the trailer.
That's a pity, really. I quite like this black and white.
I mean, I'm sure they'll have some elements in there as well. But I liked the look of it. Again, it's not one that I've heard much about, but it's just one that intrigued me from trailers. And again, maybe a bit of homework for you to investigate if you don't mind and have a look, see what you think. But yeah, I just liked the look and the feel of it, basically.
Yeah, it looks like something worth having a look at. And that's not coming out on on PlayStation.
Not that I know of yet.
No
Again,
plans.
a lot of these, and most of the games I picked this month from, looking forward, I've tried to concentrate on the very near future so that we're not, doubling up on
we don't
things
look
in
too
future
far away.
episodes. But a couple of these were actually things that we just missed coming up, but I thought you might not have heard of, and good to have a quick look at. And then I just thought look forward a little bit, but most of the ones I found weren't PSVR2. Most of the ones were other things, but things I thought you'd be interested in, basically, or worth discussing or bringing up to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one that I have heard of but haven't really paid much attention to is Demeter, the Asklepios Chronicles. So this
I didn't just put that in there because it was difficult to pronounce, by the way.
So this is coming out on the 20th of January, which, as we're recording this, is tomorrow. This is a mixed reality game, so it's going to be Quest 3 exclusive, I imagine.
Yeah. And possibly Apple's spatial system as well.
Oh, now I
I'm going
remember
with
which
that
one this
name.
is. Okay, so I remember what game this is now. So this is you've called it Space Moss in our show
Space
notes.
Moss. Yeah.
This is the game that is a kind of 3D platformer in MR where it takes your room that you are in and builds the levels around your furniture effectively.
Now, I just thought it was interesting. I think this seems like slightly cutting edge mixed reality. And I think if this one is successful, it could spawn, a series of copies in its wake, basically. But yeah, I think graphically it doesn't come across that well, but I think it could work better in mixed reality than it looks in trailers. And yeah, as I said, one to keep an eye on, and I thought it was of interest just because it's one of the first games I've seen we're going full in on mixed VR and going with that Moss approach where, and anyone that hasn't seen Moss or wasn't watching the trailer, it's a kind of third-person game, but with you in the environment as a kind of God mode type thing as well. And I think that could work really well in mixed reality, basically.
Yeah, mixed reality is getting a couple of good, really solid games at the moment, including the Lego game where you can just kind of build Lego sets and have them operate in front of you and solve puzzles with them. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, which is going to do my nutting.
Lego Tales, isn't it? I think.
No, that doesn't ring a bell. Anyway, it came out about a few weeks ago on Quest, and I've not had a chance to pick it up and have a crack yet, but it looks really good.
I'm trying to ignore it because it's not on PS VR2 yet, but yeah.
Yeah, unlikely to be as well, unless they have got a VR mode in it.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's AR exclusive. Lego Brick Tales, that's the name.
Right, Brick Tales.
Thank you, producer Coleman. So next on the list, we've got Underdogs, which is also coming out on the 25th. This is PC, VR, and Quest.
Yeah, this is one where, if you haven't heard of this yet, Kev, reviews came out today, and it's one I've been keeping an eye on for a while, and they're as positive as I hoped. It looks excellent. I think you want to be buying this game.
Okay, so this is described as a physics-based brawler, which always fills me with some level of dread, with roguelike mechanics. It uses ARM-based locomotion and comic book style presentation. Okay,
yeah.
So are we talking some sort of like pistol whip, but with punching rather than
kind of
guns?
Obviously, without, and we've discussed that I haven't played pistol whip before, so I'm not sure how heavily the musical element plays. But this is definitely more of a kind of straight up mech brawler. With environmental things that do damage to you, but can also, you can throw your opponents into them as well. There are like boss fights where it's mech on mech, but like a big mech that you're fighting in, like one-on-one. But otherwise, it's a series of like little like dog mechs that you're wrestling with and throwing around, and it's got a kind of thing where you have to upgrade and get different things, but it sounds like you need to like barter and kind of negotiate and kind of find your way around in a kind of like daytime part of the game, and then it's at night when you start fighting and stuff, basically. And I really like the graphical style. It's kind of set in London and a bit gritty, so there's like heavy grime music and stuff in it as well, which might not be entirely to your liking, but I think will be very suitable to the kind of cel-shaded, gritty attitude that they're going for with the graphical style of it as well. And yeah, from all accounts coming out today, it's the first must-buy game of the year, basically. We'll give a shout-out to a few of the people that I watched and spoke about it. So Gamertag VR had his review came out today, and he's someone I trust to generally have a good opinion on stuff and back that up. And he absolutely loves it. And Beardo Banjo is the other person I think I watched the review of today, and he really loved it as well. So they're two people that generally, have trustworthy opinions. Even if they don't necessarily 100% gel with mine, I know that they're, going to put an honest opinion out there, and they were really heavily praising it. So it looks really good fun. I think, other than being like quite a good workout, like I don't know how much that appeals to you at the moment, especially if you're recovering from a cold. But other than that, I think this is definitely one that you want to pick up, basically. And I'm jealous of the fact that you've got it now. But apparently the devs have said that it's coming to PSVR 2 at some point in the future. So I very much look forward to that, and want to see it be a success. Also, I'll note, because of both the people that I just mentioned, still worth people going and watching their reviews, even though I'm flagging other people's content. It's worth doing that. One, because their reviews are good, but two, also the developers have a competition at the moment where you can win a Quest 3. I entered it myself, and it's quite easy to go through multiple entries. You have to do some Twitter stuff and some Discord things and other bits and bobs. But yeah, worth checking out their content. They've got links to the competition in both of Gamertag VR and Beardo Banjo's videos. So yeah, worth checking out. But
absolutely, yeah.
And I want to see what you think of this game because I think you would like it.
I want to say it was Beardo Banjo's review of Arizona Sunshine 2 that convinced me to pull the trigger on it, specifically on PC rather than Quest for graphics reasons. But we'll get onto that later. So next up on the upcoming games, we've got Aces of Thunder, which is coming out exclusively for PSVR 2. This is from Guardian Entertainment.
Yes, this is one where I wanted to at least get something PSVR 2 on the list, basically. We still don't know exactly when this is, but just before Christmas, the developers, as you said, Guardian Entertainment, which do War Thunder, which is the game that this, I think, is taking from somewhat, or taken out of, or being developed by, someone that's had experience at doing that at least. They said before Christmas in a tweet that the game development is almost finished and to expect exciting news shortly. So we still haven't had an update on that yet, but I'm really hoping this is kind of maybe not February, because February's already got a few games, I think, coming out on it, but hopefully very soon we will get news of a release date, and this will be on the horizon. Really looking forward to this. Really hope it has HOTAS support, unlike the game that I've already forgotten the name of because I put it out of my mind because I didn't even purchase it because I was so disappointed it didn't have HOTAS support, and apparently it tried to con everyone into buying it. So I don't even feel like giving it a shout out and double checking it because it didn't double check its work. I can't be bothered to double check its name. So yeah, really looking forward to Aces of Thunder. That's one that I get to hold over you, I'm afraid, for now. But yeah, that's hopefully one PSVR 2 game that is going to be good and coming out soon.
I get Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 at some point in the next few months as well, so that'll be fine. Dead Hook is the last one, which is one that I am vaguely interested in based on the description, which I believe was described as what if Doom in VR.
Not just that, what if Doom with a Spider-Man movement mechanic?
Right.
And
I'm familiar with this game.
Yeah, also dual wielding, basically, because that seems to be a lot of what.
Oh, so this is already out on something, right? Is this already out on Quest?
Not as far as I know. I don't know if there's an advanced preview, but we've just got a release date of the 8th of February for, I believe, PSVR 2 and Quest, and I think Steam VR, but I'm not certain on that.
Right, okay. I could have sworn maybe I saw an early access version of this or something, but I could have sworn I'd seen this floating around. My memory is that people that have played it were thinking that while great in premise, it is not the best execution. But we will wait and see for the reviews of this.
It doesn't look perfect, but as long as it's not as blurry as Hellsweeper was, which is similar.
Right, Hellsweeper was the one that I'm now going to. I'm going to hold my hand up. I may be getting confused with Hellsweeper.
It's entirely possible. They do look very similar in premise, but that I'm hoping that they patch that game so it actually comes good, because it looks like a really fun game, but it's so blurry it's hard to actually concentrate on the game. And I'm hoping Dead Hook doesn't have the same problem and lands a bit better. And I kind of like the interest of the movement mechanic there, not flipping over so much, but doing kind of Spider-Man swinging bit on chains. So metal Spider-Man, I guess. But yeah.
Right, so that's upcoming games, and we are now going to move on to the kind of chunkiest part of our show, which is what we've been playing, which has been quite a lot. And I'm going to start off with Assassin's Creed Nexus VR, which I believe came out in November. Sneaky. When that game came out, it got, should we say, decent reviews. Nothing that was no one was saying it was spectacular or anything. I'm glad.
But at least it wasn't a
footage of
massive
this.
disappointment by the sounds of things, basically.
By no means whatsoever. So here's the thing with Assassin's Creed Nexus VR that I want to say. I've got notes a mile long on this game. I was making every day I played it, I came down and wrote about 3 paragraphs of what I'd just experienced. And went back and
Assassin's Creed Nexus Diaries.
This took me back to my days as a prevalent, like, I don't want to say prevalent like I was popular, but prevalent as in I always wrote game reviews for every game I was playing. And when I was writing reviews, I always used to make so many notes so I could go through them as I was writing a review and make sure I was like hitting the exact same kind of mind space that I was in at the time. So my top main takeaway on this review, I'm going to read it word for word from my notes.
Okay.
Buried beneath a complete lack of polish on the controls and some of the worst jank, even relative to the Assassin's Creed franchise, is the best VR game that has ever been made, and surprisingly, a really great Assassin's Creed game.
Oh, okay. So slight mixed bag, backhanded compliment.
And I've pointed out that every one of my major issues, which are all controls and physics related, could be solved with a significant patch.
Okay.
It's not like they have to take the game back to square one. This game, I could not stop playing and I could not stop thinking about. And the reason that comes off as a backhanded compliment from what I just said is that every time I finish, I'd be like, right, I'm putting this down. Tomorrow I will continue. I've had enough. And then I'd be like the rest of the day just going, I need to play it again. I need to play it again. I need to play it again. I need to play it. And like there would be like 3-4 moments at least every time I had a play session. I was going for like 1 to 2 hours per session. And I can count on 2 hands the number of times I'd be like, oh, fuck's sake. Why won't you do what I want you to do? From like looking through big gaps between, you got like rails with the sort of banisters going down and you got holes between them, and I'd have my knife out and I'd be looking through like, okay, time to lob a knife, and it went into the pole to the 8 inches to the left. What the hell happened there? Okay, let's lean up over the top and lob this knife at that guy, and it hit the flower pot 3 feet to the right. Like, what? I wasn't aiming there. Like, this is a game where PSVR2's eye tracking would be so at home because it would actually aim where I'm looking at. Instead, it's making its best guess based on what the headset's pointed at, the number of breakable things or targetable things that are in front of you. The bow works a lot better than the knives, but the knives are way more satisfying. You have limited amount of each, so you have to go and find refills if you run out. The thing that works really well, but again, this is going to be like with a flip side, is like jumping off of places with both of your blades out and getting people with the proper Assassin's mood. It feels so good. The way you trigger this with your controls is you hold in the trigger and then you flip your wrists like this, and then the blades will stick out. And you jump off and you go like this, and it's perfect. They've encapsulated the experience so well until your arms go, your elbows go 3 feet in each direction. You can see your shoulders expand in front of you, and suddenly you realise, oh, I'm in a VR game, which is infuriating. There's the constant thing with sword combat is messy. It's not the best part of it. It works fine, but you will occasionally catch a sword on something to the side, and then your hand in real life would be going, and your sword's over here in your headset, so it throws just a disconcertion about your space. What else? I'm just looking through my notes here. So the jank is severe in places, namely the sword gets stuck to an object around you.
Yeah.
When you move your actual arm, the sword does not go with it. Also, the grip during climbing can fail off, and this is where most of my cursing came from.
Oh, did you just fall off a building?
No, well, sometimes. The biggest issue is I'm feeling like I must have missed a key pixel rather than an entire plank of wood or row of bricks. So you'll grab, you'll climb, you'll grab, you'll climb, you'll grab, you'll climb. You grab the next thing that looks exactly the same as everything else you've done, but you miss a pixel, I want to say, and then it just doesn't trigger the grip, and then you let go of your other hand, and suddenly Tim's gone, and you fall. There we go. So yeah, you'll be grabbing one bit and you'll grab the next bit, and then it won't grip, and then you'll fall all the way down because you can't. And unless you grab very pixel perfectly the thing that is grabbable on the way down, which when you're falling at speed is not easy to do, you're just falling all the way down, losing a bunch of health because you just fell a massive distance. And it happens a lot.
I have some questions, though, Kev. Can you do the kind of signature swan dive?
Yes.
Yes.
There's literally a button for it. So
okay.
when you've got a haystack ahead of you, and it will let you know via the UI that it's available to you. You just stand up, you put your hands both to one side like the guy does in like all the characters do in the games. You press a button and it takes you off perfectly, smooth frame rate all the way down, land on the floor.
And that feels good in VR?
Feels great. Feels great. As I say, there's so much about that. Like the parkour feels brilliant when it works and it goes in the direction you want it to go in. It is very dependent on, like, again, pixel perfect headset direction. So you're kind of making sure that if you're running across a plank, keep your head bloody still while you're doing it. Okay. Otherwise you'll be like, well, there's a guy over there. Okay, I need to look over there to see where that guy is. And now I've got off the plank because it's following my head. You can change it to follow the controller instead of your head, but I've never had much luck with that. It just doesn't jibe with me.
Yeah, I never know what to do with those sort of options. I haven't found a good solution for that.
On the subject of running, if you're in the middle of a sprint somewhere for a challenge run, or if you're just trying to run away from some enemies or chase after someone, it's fine as long as you're going in a straight line with kind of, 40 degrees of freedom in each direction. As soon as you need to do a 90-degree turn, the button you are holding to use parkour is on the right controller, which is the same button that you need to turn with. So you're in the middle of a sprint, holding that button down, and then in order to turn 90 degrees, you've got to take your button off of the parkour, stop, and then carry on running. So yeah, it's not the best. Like when that happens, it completely takes you out of it. Which obviously in the game you'd be running, and then I guess what was the button in the game? Was it a face button? So you probably have the same issue in the game, right? Unless you could use a left stick to turn in that situation. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be as much of an issue when you're just using the sticks. I would have thought.
Yeah. The other thing that annoyed me with the physics was like if I was standing on top of a building and I just wanted to slip, I would turn around and I just wanted to back off the edge and then grab the thing I just fell off of. And there's so many use cases for this. But unfortunately, when you're going forwards or backwards and you go off an edge, you end up going about, I want to say hyperbolically, 30 feet off the edge. But as if you've jumped, but you just kind of go off and then go and like keep moving forward as you're falling. It's really weird. I discovered the way to solve this is to do it sideways. If you go off the edge sideways, it's fine. You just land on one hand and then you pull yourself up and correct yourself. It's a weird inconsistency that just drove me up the wall every time I did it. That doesn't gel with the real
world. One other thing I wanted to ask, if you can get into it without going into spoilers, and I'll try and ask it in such a way that it doesn't, but I believe this has got 3 different protagonists from different eras.
Correct, yeah.
Does it sort of flip-flop between those protagonists, or do you have to like do like one person's story, complete that, and move on to the next person?
No, it's generally 2 to 3 from like levels for each character, and you'll go through each character multiple times. So I think there's about 20 something levels, and it's like every 3 levels you'll change character.
Right, okay. And is that has that got a central hub in present times then, basically?
Yep. Yeah, so the kind of, it's no spoiler to give the kind of setup for the game. So you have been hired as a mercenary of sorts by Abstergo, which are obviously the megacorp that is in Assassin's Creed, the Templar people. And they've asked you to go back and find some MacGuffin code that you need to go. So they've asked you to go back into the life of Altair, no, not Altair, Ezio, and what's her face? Cassandra, I want to say, from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And to my chagrin, Connor from Assassin's Creed 3, who you'll be pleased to hear is just as lifeless of a character as he was in Assassin's Creed 3 in this game. Which, if that's your bag, fair enough, but it's not mine. However, he does have a, what do they call him? Tomahawk. So, that's fun.
Choose Connor, choose life.
Indeed. So the way it works is that you start going through you can go through one level at a time, but every level's got challenges in it if you want to do them, like achievements per level. So you can go back and redo levels whenever you want from the hub. And the whole time it turns out you are also a double agent because you're working for the assassins, and the 2 computer people who are consistently in the games, whose names I am blanking on, but are definitely in the second game going forward. the girl and the guy, they are kind of like they're guiding you through trying to do they're trying to get you to implant additional code so that the assassins can get the thing before the Templars do. And that whole thing is a consistent overarching story throughout. It's very much a MacGuffin story that has no real like relevance to the mainline games if you're into that lore, but it is a nice extra side thing that's going on.
Yeah, it's just I'd seen a couple of reviews and I'd seen a few people talking about it generally, but I hadn't heard how the game was, situated and stitched together. So I was interested to know from you, basically.
Yeah, I mean, this came in, I want to say, at number 5 or number 6 on my top games of the year. Even though I have so many issues with it, and I really hope they patch a lot of it to sort it out. But despite all of my issues, I can't help but love it. I can't stop thinking of. While I was playing it, I couldn't put it down. I played nothing else while this was in my queue. And once I finished it, I was like, I could go and play other games, but I really just want to play this again. and not even go back and just finish levels off. I just want to start from scratch. It's so good. But I felt like by the time I got to the end of the game, Rebecca and Sean Coleman reminds me. Yes, that's the absolute bang on 2 people that I'm talking about. By the time I got to the end of it, I'd kind of figured out a way to live with all of the idiosyncrasies that I didn't like. So I knew that if I wanted to throw a knife at someone and hit them, I needed to make sure that they were stood in a position where they weren't surrounded by other breakable objects that the game might get confused with. So I started updating my tactics to make up for the game's shortfalls, which is not an ideal way to... Colin puts out Sean is the Thomas was a lone voice bloke. Yes, I believe that's correct, yeah. So it's not the ideal way to, enjoy a video game, but by the time I got to the end, I couldn't get enough of it. It was so good. Like the climbing, when it works, is best in class. The parkour is best in class, again, when it works. The assassinations are just empowering, but you have to watch your arms fly all over the place. It's so good. The one thing I cannot forgive it for is I want to say everyone should play this game if they've got a Quest. This is a must play. Yeah, absolutely. Despite the things that I've said negative about it, it's an absolute must play. One of the best experiences I've ever had in VR.
Ooh.
What I will say that the unforgivable sin it makes, though, and a lot of VR games do this, no, it's nothing to do with the characters. Because the Quest is not the most powerful platform in the world, right. So of course this is going to happen. I would constantly find baskets full of fruit. And it was not full of fruit. It was a basket with a 2D plane of a picture of some fruit. And let me tell you, Tim, this happened a lot. And not just in baskets of fruit, but like walls, floors. It sometimes felt so 2-dimensional, like someone had just grabbed a JPEG off of Google and went, slap that on the side, done. We've got a texture. And that was... That was the one thing that really pulled me out from time to time. And I understand you can't render every single bloody apple when you're a game about running past the apples faster than light, but it's one of those things. It was
when you stop to smell the roses that you really see the little cracks in some games.
That's it. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. That's perfect. But I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything here. The accessibility and comfort options are extensive. There are configurations available here that most people could play this game without any compromise whatsoever. Ooh. So that's good. So that's Assassin's Creed Nexus VR. Unless you've got any further questions, we can move on.
No. I'm really hopeful it comes to PSVR 2. It sounds like you had good fun with it. I kind of kept up with some of your tweets, but it sounded like early days you weren't so sure, and it's kind of it's spun you around and got you on the positive again. So that is good to hear. I'm glad that was the case.
As I said to you on Threads, I believe, it did take me a while to find one person reviewing it who was willing to put up to write out the issues that I had with it. A lot of other reviews were like, yeah, this is a pretty good Assassin's Creed game. We enjoyed it. And it's like, where's all the stuff that I've been experiencing and throwing my controllers across the room about? But no, apparently one person other than me was willing to write about that stuff. But I've said it. I've said my piece.
Yeah.
Despite all of that, it's a fantastic game. And as I say, I actually enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Half-Life Alyx. to put it on that much of a
some,
pedestal.
yeah, really big praise.
Even though it is so much less of a good game, objectively, than Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah.
Because it is a tacked together, gaffer-taped nightmare. But it's so good.
But I think you prefer a more free-form experience to a more corridory, shootery type experience.
That's true, but
Half-Life
I really
Alyx
love
is
Half-Life Alyx
excellent
despite
example
that.
of, but I think you prefer being something that gives you a bit more freedom
to
mess around in a world environment. So I think that
Agreed.
kind of makes sense from that side.
I will say, after playing Vampire the Masquerade Justice just before this came out, where that was a game where you were doing assassinations, but you were very much restricted to the ledges and the climbable surfaces that the developers had very intentionally put in there. So you didn't have any real freedom. Yeah, exactly. Whereas in Assassin's Creed, it's you can climb anywhere. There's a little bit of a groove in a texture. Have fun. And I did a lot. Anyway, I've taken up way too much time talking about this game. It's brilliant. So everyone should play it. It is also flawed.
Well, if you permit me to jump in, and we'll kind of go back and forth, and I'll allow you to take the lead on the next thing.
Go for it.
One that I want to talk about very quickly, just because it's worth talking about, and it's a decent little game. But like you were saying, it's not without its faults. I still kind of love it despite its faults, but that comes with a couple of caveats. And that's a game called Toy Trains VR. I did speak about it this week on BRB UK, so I'll gloss over it a little bit more than I would have done otherwise. But yeah, it's a very fun, cozy game about about kind of solving puzzles in a sort of setup of a old school train set kind of setting. And the background to that is that you have been left by your parents, and not left in any horrible way, but left with your grandparents for the summer type thing, while they're off on their holidays, and they're communicating to you via postcards, and you are playing with this toy train set in your grandparents' loft, basically. And at some point, I thought it was going to go dark. It didn't. It keeps it nice and light and breezy throughout, basically. And yeah, it's. I thought there might be a dark turn near the end, but no, it's just a nice, cozy game about making trains and solving puzzles. Generally by like linking up a track to a selection of houses that are in different locations in the environment, and then there'll be one key item like building that you are adding different layers of that construction by linking all the different houses in the environment to that center point, basically. And it unlocks various different track pieces as you go, and various kind of decorative pieces that you can also add to the environment once you kind of solve the puzzle. But generally, the main part of the game is just linking up all the houses via the track. And it kind of gets to the point where you're building bridges and tunnels, and you've got various different ways of getting through and across the environment, and kind of building through different levels and different platforms. And yeah, it's as I said, it has its limitations slightly. I just in terms of the length and breadth of content compared to price. I think if this game was about half price of what it is, I think it's about £16. And I think if it was under the £10 mark, it's worth picking up, and it's quite good fun, and it's a slightly different puzzle game, a bit different to kind of anything that I've certainly played before. And I haven't really I wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards many train games, but the only thing I saw of recent comparison was the one that they made in Dreams that I played and didn't actually like. And that had a kind of wider puzzle element to it, but I just preferred the gameplay of this one. It felt kind of more relaxing to play. It wasn't as much of a challenge, and I think that was slightly to its detriment. But in terms of just an enjoyable game, I much preferred this to the Tren, or I think it was in Dreams. And yeah, like I really enjoyed my time with it. I just wish it would be a much easier recommendation with either a bit more game or a little bit off the price, basically. Because it feels like everything is a training level until the last level. The last level is quite freeform, where you've got all the pieces unlocked and you've got like a big puzzle to solve, and then it's the last level in the game. And it feels like, no, this should be the first level in a succession of levels where I've got all the puzzle pieces and I'm solving various different puzzles. And it doesn't feel like it kind of wraps up the story side of things fairly well, but I just wish they'd add in another, like, it's got like 10 levels throughout, and I wish they added another 5 to 10 levels of the size of the last level just to the game. And then again, that would be an easier recommendation for the price, basically. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. I like the sound of that kind of chill. In a similar vein, I've actually been thinking about buying Power Wash Simulator VR. just for some chill time. So I think we'll go on to one next that we've both played. Just before I do, I just want to point something out I forgot to mention about Assassin's Creed, which is that it's classified as a mixed reality game.
Oh.
And the reason for this is that you are playing yourself, sort of. So the first screen, whenever you're about to talk to the person from Abstergo, you are looking through the cameras in your headset into your actual room. And then a mixed reality interface shows up with like a phone call coming in, and then you go and press that and you talk to people. And this really hits home later in the game. Mild spoiler. Hits home later in the game when they send soldiers after you, and you're sitting in your actual, in my case, bedroom, and you can like hear soldiers running up the stairs outside. You're just like, hold on a minute, am I actually, what's going on? That was cool. I just wanted to point that out. Not sure how they'd integrate that into just pure VR experience. They probably just replace the mixed reality stuff with a default backdrop of some sort.
Yeah.
But that's the only mixed reality stuff in there. Not sure why they needed it, but it's cool that it's there.
It's a nice little touch.
Let's talk about Arizona Sunshine 2, which was a long-awaited game, I'll say, in VR circles that came out in December.
Yeah.
And came out to positive reviews.
Yeah, in the
I
main,
wouldn't say perfect in any way, shape, or form, but
a few criticisms more on length of content than the quality of it.
I felt like it was a good length, to be honest with you. I probably took 6 and a bit hours to beat it.
I mean, as we just saw in some of the video footage, but you can put a hat or various different hats on a dog.
On your dog, yeah.
Game of the year, as far as I'm concerned. Like,
that dog became my best mate by the end of that game.
Yeah.
And because there's a dog in the game, they do really test you sometimes with where they take the story, and it comes out of nowhere. In fact, one of my big criticisms of this game is the main character is just as bloody insufferable as he was in the first game. I hate every single thing he says. He's joking about everything. And I understand that from a lore perspective, this guy has lived through a zombie apocalypse. He's broken. He's mentally broken and joking about the entire situation and like acting like a complete
that's kind of
arse.
his coping mechanism of getting through everything that he's been through. And
Absolutely. I fully understand where they're coming from on it. It doesn't make it less unbearable.
Yeah, he's still annoying. Like, I don't think I hate it quite as much as you do, but he is a bit grating.
I want to say it does make for a great like contrast when you hit the 2 or 3 serious notes in the game, when he suddenly realizes how much of a shitstorm they're in. And like, I was just like, oh my God, this is a different game when some parts happen, because you're like, the story just suddenly got really deep and the characterization was like, wow. But where did that come from? This game's been telling me arse jokes the entire time. And now I'm actually feeling emotions. Like, where did this come from? Which is an interesting approach. Like, I'm not sure I would have weighed quite as heavily in the like psychotic, jokey aroundy stuff if I were writing it. But I'm not a games writer, so there you go.
And I'm guessing from what you're saying, you've completed the game, yeah?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Did
See,
you?
I have not, but mainly because when I started playing it, I got my cold shortly afterwards, kind of thing. And I haven't, but also mainly because I keep on saying that I'm going to play it with a friend of mine who's on Quest, and we played some like walkabout golf and some other stuff quite a lot together. But every time we try and make an appointment to kind of play this together, something gets in the way. Like, he asked me to play this evening. I'm like, I can't play VR because I'm talking about VR.
Yeah, always an issue.
And yeah, just it's just one of those things. So I want to play it multiplayer because I think it'd just be a fun game to do that, and you can do it. What's the name? Cross-platform.
Cross-platform, yeah.
So that I want to kind of save it for that, and as a result, I haven't played as much of it as I'd like to, just because we literally have not been able to do it. It'd be like literally the conversation today was, okay, can you play Wednesday? No, I'm doing a podcast. Can you play Thursday? No, I'm doing a podcast. Can you do Friday? And that was me to him, and he was like, no, I'm collecting a dog from Wales. It's just it's like. Okay, all right, I give up. But we're gonna try and play this together at some time. But yeah, it. From what you've seen though, I've played the first couple of hours, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really liked what I saw. I thought it was pretty decent. The weapons felt good. The relationship with your dog was cool. As you said, the main character's a bit grating. But does that continue to a high standard throughout the game? From what I've heard, that seems to be the case. But is that what you kind of came away with?
The game does one thing phenomenally, and it holds that throughout the whole game, and that is the action of shooting zombies. It feels brilliant to fire weapons. It feels great to fire weapons. Every weapon has its own reload mechanic, which is always a great thing in a VR game. It's the weapons all have a satisfying noise that comes out of them. The whole sort of animation of when something gets hit, especially on a headshot, is just really satisfying. I sound like a bit of a sociopath right now, but I promise you I do mean in the realm of zombie shooters on a VR headset. So it does that one thing great. Every other aspect of what I would consider parts of a video game, Dog in Hat is great. The dog's cool, a really good addition. Every other aspect of the game, graphics, fine. Better than the first one, but not something to write home about. General sound design outside of the weapons, it's fine. Everything about the game is fine. Level design, really rote. Sort of progression. Go to location 1, discover that you need to go to location 2, go to location 2, discover you need to go to location 3, continue until end of game. Very, very one note. It's not interesting. The story itself exists. I mean, it's fine. There are some good moments in it, couple of little twists, one twist towards the end very particularly. But for the most part, nothing. I wouldn't give it good marks on it. It's fine. I think it's not a must play, but it's a good game on a VR headset if you've got one.
It's easy to recommend, other than I would say there is some good contenders in the VR zombie murdering games already, basically. And that's the only thing I think counts against it slightly. As you said, it's not perfect in what it does, and I think Saints and Sinners has a better story setup and a slightly better melee system.
I've not had a chance to play that yet, but as I understand it, that's very much about the melee system in that game, whereas this one's much more about guns. And the guns in this game are... You basically got pistols, machine guns, single-shot rifles and shotguns through most of the game. You can also pick up knives and some melee weapons. They're fine. They work just, but they're always a risk because you might get hit while you're trying to use them. So the guns are all very kind of one note, but they feel great. I will say you find a couple... If you go off the beaten path, there are some secret weapons that are much more fun than the standard weapons. And you don't get to use them for very long, but they are really good. And the final sequence of the game is phenomenal in that regard. Nice. Really good fun. I won't spoil it, but it gave me a feeling of... Do you remember when you get to the end of Half-Life 2 and your gravity gun gets souped up so that you can fire people as well as objects now? It felt a bit like that. Okay. So that's really good. So yeah, I recommend this game. I don't think it is by no means a 5 out of 5. I wouldn't even give it a 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5 for my liking. But a strong one.
Yeah, okay. I'll defer to your opinion on that just because you've seen more of the game. But for me, it's definitely edging towards a 4 out of 5 just because, as you say, the one thing that it does really well is it's a good zombie killing game with guns, and that hasn't got old for me yet, but that may be just because I haven't seen the whole package. But
you've got another 4 hours to get through of it, and it doesn't change. That's the issue I have, is that there's no depth to it. It's just what you get.
Right.
The first hour of that game is exactly the same as the rest of the game.
Okay.
With a couple of moments here and there.
Yeah, we are running a bit short on time, so I'll move things along fairly quickly because I would like to, because I think it makes sense to package these together, talk about some Vertigo 2.
Yep.
The other thing I'll just mention in passing is I picked up in the sales Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and that's another reason that I haven't played as much Arizona 2, because I'm kind of happy to save that one for multiplayer, and I've been playing a bit of that in single player. But Vertigo 2 came out this week on last week, I think, actually, as we're talking about it. It came out on PSVR 2. It's been out for a bit on Quest and very highly spoken about. Got delayed from before Christmas on PSVR 2 because there were some game-breaking bugs. And from what I've played of the PSVR 2 version, I haven't encountered any massive game-breaking bugs, although I have had to restart a level to get through some places. But it does have a few slightly wonky bits of physics and
that is the exact same as the PC version. So that's,
okay, slight jank to the game, but it's slightly imperfect, as you said with Assassin's Creed. But the one thing it definitely does better than Arizona Sunshine 2 is variety and humor. And there are things in abundance in this game. To me, it kind of seems like, and I've seen this said elsewhere, and I can't help like saying similar because just exactly how it feels. It feels like Half-Life. What if Half-Life Alyx was made by the guys that made Rick and Morty, either the series or the game? But it's just that kind of outlandish alien design and slightly wacky humor. Slight wackiness to the weapons as well, and the weapons feel quite cool, but they are a bit weird. And then, yeah, the humor is just bizarre at points, basically. You say you've played the demo of this, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, so how far does that take you into the game? Or is it a middle portion of the game, or how does it set things up?
I'm pretty sure it's the first 3 levels. So the level I didn't finish the demo, but the level I finished on, you get to a big dome thing where I kept getting blown off the side of the dome.
Right. Okay. So I'm a bit further than that. I'm probably another hour or so in, maybe a bit more. And yeah, like it constantly keeps me laughing. The weapons feel good. As I said, there's a few janky bits and a few things like where there's a bit in an airship early on, and like it just, the physics are broken because the airship turns and you're like stay still as it's turning, and you don't turn with the airship, and it just feels really weird. And there's some like weird janky things like that. But the airship sequence and like gunning from the back and shooting stuff is quite cool. And like most of the things I've encountered so far, like with your arms being weird and stuff like that, it is all generally forgivable and easier to forgive when I'm laughing my arse off along the way and being freaked out by the enemy design. And yeah, it's just wacky and zany, and I've really enjoyed my time with it so far. Like the shooting's not like that much of a challenge, but occasionally it will just go, and here's a really hard monster that you haven't seen yet, and good luck, and I hope you don't die. Have fun.
Yeah. This game, I've only played the demo. Heads up. This is not my cup of tea, wacky zany wise. It's not my blend of wacky and zany. I do not care for the completely arbitrary, weird enemy designs. Like I don't need to walk into a room and see a cube of meat with a face on it and an arse for some reason. So let me read this paragraph out. So I really do like the like gun designs and the different reload mechanics and that lot. That's fine. I don't think the shooting feels good at all, but the guns themselves look brilliant. There's a lot of this I think feels like it's designed by one person, which it is.
Yes,
and I don't fault it for that. That's the thing. As much as I don't particularly care for it, it's difficult to judge it too harshly because it's made by one person. And good lord, is it an ambitious project? So absolute props to that person.
I've been trying to work out if it's been voiced by the same person as well. Like,
I couldn't tell you.
I'm not entirely sure, but if it is, well done. But yeah.
But let me read through this paragraph that I wrote in my notes. So the game feels like it is missing the fine touches that would allow me to otherwise feel immersed in it. It feels like it was made on a low budget by a single person or a small team, which it is, and that's fine. Yeah. But I'm losing my mind trying to wrap my head around the many comparisons to Half-Life Alyx. Anyone making that comparison is utterly forgetting their time with Alyx, or never played it, or is just outright lying to serve hyperbole. It's nowhere near close. Having interactive bottles and cans, and weapons with their own unique reload mechanics does not equal the heights of Alyx. That game put the player in City 17. Vertigo 2 puts the player in a VR headset shooting some cubes with faces on them, while standing in a room that constantly reminds them that they're playing a low-budget video game. Again, I'm not against shoestring budget games, especially ones made by one person. Let's not go crazy here. There's a ceiling at his level that falls way short of a Valve game.
Yes.
That's my notes.
I think a lot of that's forgivable when the price is reasonable for the breadth of content that you get with it and the variety of gameplay that comes in what I've seen so far.
Agreed.
As I said, I really like the feel of the weapons. I do kind of gel with the humor. I laugh along with it. Like, I don't think I've ever... and I'll save Coleman, I'll self-edit a bit, but like walk around the corner and WTF'd like as many times as I have in this game so far, like per minute of played. Like, it's just walk around the corner and, okay, did I just see that? Is that what I saw? I ducked around the corner to get in cover again, but I think I was being shot at by a load of hot dogs with machine guns. I think that's what's going on. Kind of F-90 style submachine gun type things, but I definitely think they were hot dogs.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many weird things that happen in this game. And yeah, like, I guess if you don't gel with that, you might not get along with the game as well. And as I said, it's definitely got its problems, but I've really enjoyed my my time with it so far, and I'm keen to get to the bottom of things and play a lot more. Like, there are some things that are a bit skew-iffy, but generally, when the shooting is okay and the humor's good, like, I think that's enough to probably pull me through and get me through the game. I do hope they patch some things out. Some weird stuff as well. Like, I just find it really weird when you're a floating body, and that's fine, but then I'm supposed to be human and I'm looking down and I don't have legs in my shadow. And that just feels really odd. And then, like, there's only really one other human that I've seen in it so far. And the character model for that was possibly the worst character model I've seen in quite some time. Like,
again, one person made this. So, hard to be too harsh against it.
Too critical. But even, like, you should say with, as you said with Assassin's Creed, there's some problems with it, but they're all forgivable for me because I just keep on coming back to it and enjoying my time with it every time I play it. So, yeah. I'm not going to fault it too much. I don't think it's quite in the height. As I said, I can understand why people get the Half-Life Alyx comparison, but I think it's more just Half-Life in general, of that eerie alien world feeling and the kind of corridor shooter setup and the sterile type environments and the kind of scientific guy with you and the kind of setting and setup, and you're in a kind of slightly alien environment. And I think that's where it comes from more than actually direct comparisons with Half-Life Alyx.
I get the impression that most of the Alyx comparisons come from the fact that you can pick things up and interact with them in weird ways.
Yeah, I think there's a bit
which is
of that
fine.
as well.
You could do that with Job Simulator for crying out loud.
Having criticised Assassin's Creed for not doing that, this is a more simplistic graphical style, so they don't have to kind of go with the textures and stuff as much. But considering it's one person, I think that is done pretty well as well, and that's praiseworthy in itself, sort of thing. Yeah.
I want to point out, this may not be my cup of tea, but I am really impressed with what one person has put together for this game. Yeah. Really impressed.
But also, hire a couple more people. You're not Jesus.
Well, we'll see how well this does across
by
platforms,
yourself.
Right? Yeah. I mean, how much money can a VR game make is the question, even when popular. Anyway, moving on. Asgard's Wrath 2 came out several weeks ago to an IGN 10 out of 10. Now, I'm not here to discuss the IGN review nonsense that gets discussed online. I don't have anything wrong with their reviews for the most part. I know a lot of people do.
They seem fair fair.
A 10 out of 10 is not as rare on IGN as it is on things like GameSpot and other review sites, but it's still a pretty significant thing to take notice of when you're in a VR space and you're gagging for decent games.
Yeah.
Now, I played Asgard's Wrath 1, I own it, and played some of it again recently in the run-up to this. And I never quite gelled with that game. I thought there was a lot of potential there, but it didn't quite gel. This game is brilliant. I'm not sure I'm on 10 out of 10 territory, for the record. But it does all of the things it does really well. So the graphics were not great when it first came out because it was a Quest 2 version. They hadn't done the Quest 3 patch at that stage. Quest 3 patch is now out, natively running on the Quest, looks really, really clear and clean. Nothing wrong with the graphics at all. The sound in it is good. The feeling of being able to lob your axe and then recall it by flicking your wrist backwards in the same way that Kratos does in the God of War games.
Yeah.
And then it comes back spinning towards you and you catch it, and then you lob it again and you spin it back towards you and you catch it. Fantastic. The melee combat, you've got a sword in one hand and an axe in the other. Parry with your sword and then hit someone around the neck with the axe or whatever you want to do. You get a shield later on, which gives you additional combat options if you want to use your shield, which you pull from behind you. There's a bow at some point that pops along. I haven't got that far yet. This game, so the first game was very bare bones on the story. It was basically you're a new Asgardian god. You don't really have any idea who you are or what you are, but you get introduced to Loki and he sends you on a series of quests to save Asgard or whatever. And it turns out that he was just trapped in a prison and he wanted to escape. So he breaks out of prison and leaves you in the prison. Yeah, so that's where the first game ends, is that Loki has left you in the prison that he was originally trapped in. This game starts with you getting broken out of that prison by an Egyptian creature, like mythical creature, which is like Ra's best mate or something. And suddenly you are dragged into mythological Egypt, and you are working with or coming across Egyptian gods and heroes. So they've changed, much like God of War did when they moved from Greece to Norse. They have switched mythologies, and it's really, really cool so far. And, you know, Egyptian stuff does tend to look pretty cool if you take care and do it right, because the Egyptians were great at, you know, coming up with concepts for characters. Yeah. You can see in this game there's giant people everywhere. You yourself are a god. When you go into god mode in puzzle areas, you become this enormous person that can pick up mountains and move them so that you're solving puzzles like that and picking up your NPCs. Speaking of NPCs, you'll get, just like the first game, you get access to different NPCs with different abilities throughout the game. They will follow your character around. I've only got one at the moment, which is, I want to say she's called Shabira or something. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But she's a panther lady. She will fight with me as a panther lady, and if I click on her and say, I want you to be a big old panther now, she turns into a mount, and then suddenly you are racing across deserts between, it's a massive open world, racing across deserts on this mount in first-person VR. It feels brilliant. You can hold the reins and guide yourself on the panther, jump off the panther, quickly get her back as a fighter, attack entire hordes of enemies between the two of you. You get things like when you've done enough damage to an enemy, you might catch a lucky blow on them and they get a symbol over their head saying that they're ready for an execution. You can either do that yourself, or you can request that your friend goes in and, the NPC runs in and does the execution.
Send in the panther lady.
Indeed, while you get on with someone else in the group. So it's really strong combat, really strong puzzle design. Yeah. And you're basically flipping back and forth between it, and really strong exploration. Yeah. Because the map is really good as well. So those are the three cornerstones of it, like combat, puzzles, exploration, and it nails all three. So I've got nothing bad to say about this game, other than just everything could do with maybe one notch more interesting in depth. But to be clear, only 6-7 hours into it. Yeah. I would be slightly further into it were it not for the fact that they patched the game and balked my save.
Oh, no.
At which point I fortunately had... And I went onto the forums. You'll love this. I went onto the forums and a lot of people were asking, what happens if my save no longer works? Because the game won't start. And they were like, you've got to completely delete all of your save files and start from scratch. Oh. And that was the official developer response. They were just like, yeah, that's how you solve it. There was no apology. Just that's how you solve it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. However, I
That's-
realized that I had a save in the cloud that was slightly older than the save I had on the headset. So what I did is delete my headset save and then just downloaded my save from the cloud. And I lost about an hour and a half of progress, 2 hours.
Right.
But I didn't have to start the game from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but apparently it's quite a lengthy game as well. So having to restart a bit of it means
I've
that,
heard tales. I've heard tales of over 100 hours if you're doing absolutely everything. So I think it's probably about. I think people will say it's 40 to 60 hours, depending on how much you do in terms of extras. And then I've already got access to this, but I haven't really messed around with it yet. They also has a roguelike mode. Yeah. So the kind of hub that you exist in, where I want to call them the fates, sending you out on quests in Egypt and whatnot. There's also another lady over to one side who's like, "Yeah, you want to go into this this dark hole over here?" And don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. Honestly, you just go in there, you'll have a laugh. And then you go in there, and it's like it's a 3-stage, I think, dungeon where you fight through floor 1, you succeed, you fight through floor 2, you fight the boss, you succeed, you fight through floor 3, hit the final boss, and then you do that. You can do that like once a day, and you never save your progress. If you die, then you get sent back, and you might have some of the resources that you gathered, but not all of them. If you finish the whole thing, you get a lot more resources. This is all used for crafting and upgrading your character. And there's also a little treasure chest over to one side. So it's got dailies, effectively. It's not a free-to-play game, but it has got daily challenges that you can do to
it's a good idea.
Get a load of resources and stuff. And it keeps the game going if you love playing the game and perhaps run out of story. For me, I'm in it for the story at the moment. I think the story's pretty good so far. I've met several gods. I'm currently working with Horus. So if anyone's got any knowledge of the kind of Egyptian... I was going to say the Bible, the Egyptian mythology. Ra is obviously up in the sky, floating around, protecting the earth from Apophis, the demon. And then you've got, what's he called? Horus's dad.
No.
Horus's dad, no. Osiris. So Osiris and Isis have their child, Horus. And there's Set as well, who's Osiris' brother. They have a fight. Set kills his brother, takes over Egypt. I'm not sure if Isis is dead or not, mum. But she sends Horus off to go and grow up somewhere else. Horus comes back, says like, "Yo, Set, I'm here to take back Egypt for my father and whatnot." And then promptly gets his eyes plucked out and sent along with a quick swift knock at the arse. And yeah, that's where you find him. He's got no eyes, which is a disturbing thing to look at. But he's trying to build up a resistance to go and fight back against Set. So that's where we are in the story at the moment. It's very early on, so I don't really consider that spoilers so much. But we're building up an army of sympathetic gods and heroes to go and take on Set. I'm not sure if that's the entire game. I could swear I heard
band back together.
Indeed. I could swear I heard mention of other mythologies being involved in this that weren't just Egyptian. So, and obviously Loki's got to show up at some point because that was like the big cliffhanger at the end of the first game. So I have no idea what's going to happen over the course of the next however many hours, but I'm looking forward to getting back into it. As I say, I've had a few weeks off because of colds and whatnot, but yeah, it's really good. I wouldn't personally be on 10 out of 10 scale yet, but I haven't finished it, and obviously they did. So
this is one that I'm very jealous of because I would like to play it, and there's not a snowball in Hell's Chance. I'm not sure what the Egyptian equivalent of Hell is, otherwise I would have put that in. But yeah, there's not a snowball in Hell's Chance of this actually appearing on PS VR2. So I am, definitely jealous of this one. This looks like a good one. And anyone that wasn't aware, this is the one that they gave away free when you purchased your Quest headset.
3.
Free in inverted commas, but you know.
Yeah, free if you're willing to pay almost 500 quid for a new headset. But you know, not a bad thing. Like, and as it turns out, a good pack-in. Like, how many pack-ins have you ever had on a console where the game is, you know, especially on a new system, where the game is like a 10 out of 10 contender? I can't count many.
Alex Kidd.
I immediately just thought of like 3. But yeah, it's really good. I'm glad that I didn't have to pay extra money for it because bonus. But I would have happily paid money for this game, given what it's like. So yeah, really good.
My other friend that bought a Quest 3 recently, or the one that I've spoken to since this game came out about the game, he was like, "Yeah, not my cup of tea. Just not bothered. I'm just not gonna play it." I'm like,
fair enough.
You've got the Quest 3, and I really want to play this game. And you're not even bothered. You're not even going to play it, and you've got the game.
Some people aren't into relatively slow-paced RPGs, are they? Let's be honest.
Oh, one thing that I have to recommend to you. I know we're up for time, so I will keep it brief. But when we're talking about actual free things, it came out on PS VR2 just before Christmas, and I believe it's already out on Quest. But Epic Roller Coasters, which for some reason has got SpongeBob SquarePants all over it on the PSVR 2 release. And that is DLC that you can buy. But the base game is free and comes with a few roller coasters. And some of them are really good. Like, there's a good one with, like, dinosaurs chasing you and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a good, just standard one where you go through loops and loops. But the free ones are good enough that I'm actually tempted to go and pay them for some of their extra content because they've impressed me that much. And they've also got like extra modes where you can race on them and where you can do like a shooting gallery thing as you're going.
Yeah.
Which isn't great, but is serviceable and kind of adds a bit more to it. But yeah, definitely worth checking out the free ones just because it's also, I think it's quite an intense thing to show off to people. So it'd have to be someone that is already well equipped in VR, I think, possibly. But it's a good thing to just show people quickly as a good, fun little thing to just drop in and have a couple of goes on the roller coasters.
It is. This is quite an old game. I had this on my original Oculus Rift, which would have been 2016, I want to say, 2017. Okay. So yeah, this is quite an old one, but obviously if it's just come out on PSVR 2, then that's why you've heard of it. But yeah, it's cool. I like it. It's one of those things where if you're going to show someone a VR headset, this is one of the things you quickly pop them in on. This and Richie's Plank experience.
I think this is a bit more intense. Depends on which course you're going on, possibly. But
clearly, you haven't seen some people. Look up on YouTube, Richie's Plank experience.
I've seen some of the videos of the Richie's Plank experience. People like screaming and like clutching onto the side of the plank. There are some good videos of that, but yeah,
it's hilarious. I love it. It's cool. It's very much each to their own in terms of like if you're motion sick in VR, this is not going to be the game.
Yeah, this is not for
experience for you. No, or banned for that matter.
But for free, it's definitely worth the price.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's always worth downloading it and seeing if you enjoy it. Like I've shown this to my sister, I want to say, and I'm pretty sure I showed her this when I showed her my VR headset, and she thought it was cool. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So there are other games that I was going to mention this week, which were the Half-Life 2 VR mod, Lone Echo 2, and Dungeons of Eternity. Just to mention that I've played them. Dungeons of Eternity I've not played enough of. I really want to play it multiplayer, but I don't have any friends. So
I've got friends that are playing this. I'll have to introduce you through some walkabout mini golf sometime. And then you can get their codes because they've been playing that and really enjoying it. So yeah,
you need to get yourself a Quest, mate. That's what needs to happen.
That's the other option as well. I can be the center point with a Quest, but I'm not sure when I'm going to be having enough funds available this year, especially with a few good game releases coming out on the way as well. So yeah.
The Half-Life 2 VR mod just mods the original Half-Life 2 game. Works way better than it has ever any right to. It's really, really fun. Not quite on Alex levels because that was designed for it, but still really fun. Lone Echo 2, I'm not going to go into a big spiel on this, although I easily could, is the single best VR game that I have played to date. And a lot of people don't like it because it's really slow and ploddy, and a lot of it is kind of a walking simulator. But I've never felt in any VR game like I am in a place as much as when I'm on that space station with those characters. It is so good. I couldn't put that down while I was playing it. And I really enjoyed the first game as well, obviously.
Okay, another one that's not very likely to come to PSVR 2 anytime soon, unfortunately.
It's not even on Steam. That is a Meta exclusive, so it will never be anywhere other than Meta.
A couple of ones that I'll mention. I mentioned Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge in passing, but just to say I picked that up in the sale. That's a very good VR game. I'd had it recommended by a few people, but that does seem to be the definitive version of that game on PS VR2 because it looks really good in the headset as well.
Yeah.
And I think that was a criticism of it on Quest and a few other places or wherever else it came up before. But that I've really enjoyed. It's just a good interaction. The weapons are good. The gunplay's good. And just standing in a like cantina style space in that just feels very, very right and very good. I haven't got to some of the late levels, and I think there's the other Tales you can play where you get to play as a Jedi. I heard that's not brilliant, but the actual gunplay and stuff is actually quite good. That feels good. Really like that so far. Resident Evil 4 VR mode was another one I was going to mention this week, but we'll come back to that in the future. I've only played a few hours, but that is very impressive from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, let's leave that for next time. That's a big one.
We'll definitely have to leave that for a discussion next time. Also, I'll mention in passing because I'm not sure it's one we'll necessarily come back to, but Racket Fury Table Tennis VR came out on PS VR2, and I think that's one that's already on Quest. And it's just table tennis against robots, but done really well. The physics feel good. It's good fun. It feels like a good ramp up between the different levels of difficulty that kind of help you get better at the game as you go. And the environments are good. The physics is the main thing in that, basically. But yeah, it feels really good. And it's good to play. And I think I picked it up fairly cheap because it was on sale. But and I think they got criticized for not having an upgrade path from the previous version on PSVR 1. But they negated that by doing a really good sale afterwards. So credit to them for doing so. I picked it up as part of that and I really enjoyed it. So maybe not get it for I think the full price was $24.99 and you probably want to get it a bit cheaper than that. But I think the sale price is something like $8.99. So it was definitely worth it for that price, basically.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll call it a show. We'll call that a show for this week. So we will be back at some point in the near future. As per usual, we're not a weekly podcast, but we will be back probably in a month or two's time when there's a few more VR things to talk about. And we will leave it for there. So I've been Kev.
I might have been Tim.
And this is VRB saying goodbye.
Oh, I forgot. I was going to change my outro for VRB. It's not I might be Tim. I think it's I was virtually Tim. Was that right?
You've ruined Colin's outro now.
I mean, I've completely ruined this. I should have remembered before we got to the outro what my outro was for this show. But yeah.
Goodbye all!
You and your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarrel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
So one of the main additions is as you're wandering around the environment, you've got a lantern which kind of either brings everything back to life. It can reveal like hidden messages and things in the environment, but mainly like